We are live. Hello, hello. Welcome, everyone. So, this is Stories of Creative Courage. And I'm here today with Joey Clifton and Solomon Mehta-Slade. And I'm going to introduce them in a moment. But first, just to allow time for people to arrive and to land, I'm going to just say a little bit about Stories of Creative Courage and why it's here, why I wanted to begin this initiative and have these conversations. Um, for me, in my work and in my own creativity, I very much feel that, creativity just takes so many shapes and forms. And I'm fascinated, endlessly fascinated by the ways that people engage with creativity in their life, in their art work, if they have a creative practice, but just in life generally, in business, in everything. So it's partly about, sharing that experience, sharing that wisdom, sharing those insights, but also what gets in the way of creativity. And as a coach and as a writer myself as well, I've seen so many times that the obstacles and the difficulties that can get in the way of being creative. So it takes a lot of courage, I think, to step up and to express oneself fully. And so that's why I'm having these conversations, so that we can learn from each other and be inspired by each other's experiences. So, without further ado, I'm delighted today to introduce and to share the space with Joey Clifton, and Solomon Mehta-Slade. And this is the first time I've done a three-way conversation, so I'm really excited about how this is going to really enrich the conversation. And as well, just hearing about what creativity means to them and how it shows up for them. So I'll introduce them both, and then we can talk a little bit about creativity, what it means to each of you, and then perhaps collectively as well, because I know that you're collaborators and co-conspirators as well in a big creative project, which we will talk about. Um, so Joey is a coach and a facilitator and a community host. And she works with purpose-led leaders and change makers, in fact, I love that word as well, to work with them and support them and guide them in their inner well-being, their creativity, confidence, and clarity. So that's Joey. And then I'll move on to Sol. Sol is the founder. Is it the Alt or the Alt Academy, Sol? Correct me in my
Great
pronunciation there.
question. Yeah, the Alt Academy. Thank you. I guess it depends on your accent slightly, but yeah, in mine it's the Alt Academy.
Alt Academy, thank you. And also the co-founder of the Change Maker Collective, which is one of the new initiatives that we're going to talk about today, because you two have come together to found this new exciting space, which I'm dying to hear more about. But one thing that really captured my attention in the way that Sol talked about his work was to work with people who want to create change, the change their hearts know is possible. And I just love that. It's such a beautiful definition of transformation
Mm.
and change, which is, as coaches, as space holders, I guess that's what it's all about for you. So that's just an introduction to the two of you. And yes, so excited to have you here. So thank you
Thank
so
you,
much for
Rachel.
taking the time.
Thank you.
Yeah. So to kick us off, general question about creativity. And really, this is very broad and very general. And I'm really curious about where this will go, having two of you here as co-founders of this community space that you're starting. How does creativity show up in your life, in your work, in your business? Over to you. Perhaps we'll take it one at a time, and then we'll see where the overlaps are, and you can talk about the collective experience as well. So, Joey, I'll come to you first.
Thank
How about you?
you.
Yeah.
Oh, creativity. Well, it feels important to start with I learnt in my early schooling years that I was not creative. So that's my backdrop. And I'm sharing that because I really feel like there's a lot of us that learn in our early schooling careers that we're not creative because we don't do beautiful artwork or something. And it's been a lifelong discovery of what creativity means and looks like for me, and that kind of unlearning process. Josh is here. Hi, Josh. And so now creativity looks like loads of different stuff for me. Like I love to cook. That's a really creative process for me. I love to do lino printing. I I love to garden, and I also find one of the like richest sources of creativity for me is my business, which is not something I thought I would ever say, but just coming up with ideas and yeah, collaboration opportunities and other new ways to support and serve and create. So that's kind of what creativity looks like for me these days.
Thank you, Cherry. Love that. Sol, how about you?
Yeah. Rachel, I just want to say I'm loving your facilitation here, calling on each of us. Because normally sessions with Joey and I, we're kind of like, "Ooh, you go, I'll go, you go." So this is really lovely. So just trying to hold space for each other. So for me, creativity, how does it show up? I would say, honestly, in a similar way to Joey, I'd say it shows up kind of reluctantly. Like I think I have to be quite intentional about it to create space for it. And space is actually a topic that Joey and I are talking about at the moment around spaces we create in the community. And for me, my automatic reaction is I'm not creative. I'm not a creative person. And I think similar to Joey, yeah, that was definitely part of my education, but also just a default kind of definition of what does it mean to be creative. You spoke to one of those versions in your intro, like artistic creativity. And I don't feel like I have much artistic creativity in me. I probably do. I just haven't sought to channel and express it. But then when I was thinking about it, it was like, yeah, kind of many things are creative acts in so many ways. And I was thinking about the work that I do, like the internal inquiry that I do for myself and for clients. Like the whole thing's a creative process. It's like a question of, well, how else might I think about this? Or how else might
Mm,
I approach this? What else could be true here? What might I need right now in this moment? Like all of these kinds of questions. Um, it's for me just a creative inquiry to drop something in and see what comes up. So I think that kind of, yeah, Joey spoke to some of the external stuff, and so I like complement that with some of the internal things that emerge for me when I think about creativity.
I love that. Thank you both so much. I mean, you speak to, and we'll come on to this in a little while, the kind of what gets in the way. And you've just already named like two of those things. Like I don't consider myself to be creative because I'm not an artist, this kind of very narrow definition of creativity that we have. And much of that comes from school or from the kind of the languages that the cultures that we come from. School is one, family of origin can be another. We sort of inherit these stories that what we need to do is a certain way, and it can be very punitive. So
Mm,
great that you both spoke to that. And what I hear in both of your definitions is this generative, like openness, like
mm,
curiosity, like, oh, what if I do it this way? What if I approach it this way? That kind of what if question that I think is really like behind what creativity is. And possibility, I hear in Joey's, like, I love that, I also love cooking. And for me, that's like one of the most creative things. It's producing something from a whole list of, or a whole load of separate ingredients and bringing them together, and for me, like, it's about joining things together, like bringing things together or making connections between two never before seen things, like joining the dots really, and so really the way you both described that just really lands for me. I love it. I love it. um so let's talk about your collective creativity, because you two are co-founders of this new initiative called Changemakers. So I'd love to know, like, how you came to create that together, and what were the principles of creativity that guided that decision, and yeah, how it's come into being, because that to me feels like the ultimate creative act.
mm.
Go on, Sol. Do you want to go?
Yeah, wow, I feel like maybe this is your story to begin, perhaps, because I mean, the idea came from Joey, really. I think it was an idea that I've been around communities for a long time. It's always been something I've looked for wherever I've lived in the world, wherever I've traveled, and I think probably struggled to find many places that I felt I was like home in. And the community really came from Joey and I suppose, doing the work that we do. And it came from a spark that Joey had around wanting to start a community of supporting change makers to be increasingly connected with each other and the possibilities and the potential that comes through that. Because we both work with people individually and we run programs. Joey's been running retreats. And there's just something that feels good and strong and powerful about bringing people together to share the journey, to share resources, and just create space to do that. And so really, the community began when Joey out of the blue called me one day and I was in the car with my wife and my in-laws and I put her on the loudspeaker. I said, hey, I can't really talk right now, just to let you know, I've got my in-laws in the back. You're on loudspeaker, but are you okay? And she said, oh yeah, like this isn't the right time at all, but I'm going to say it anyway. I want to start a community with you. I was like, okay, amazing. Yes. Should we talk later? Okay, great. Bye.
So from my side, I'm going to intercept you. Is that all right? So this idea, the Changemaker Collective, was born for me probably years before I went to Sol and had that conversation, when I was actually walking through uphill, of course, because that's always when you call people, in a woodland. And he's obviously, it's terrible timing for him and it's probably awful for me too. But you just have to there's something about seizing the moment with creativity. And so the penny had dropped for me because of a business community that we three are part of, as well as you, Josh. And there's something about being in different spaces that are inspiring. And so let me backtrack. I'd wanted to create this for a while because with my one-to-one clients, I had noticed the trends that I was working with them on, the kind of the patterns and the topics that were coming up again and again, and they were a lot around feelings of loneliness and feeling not supported in the way they needed to do the work they were doing. And I kind of got this growing feeling of we're better together with this. Like, so much of what we need is what we all need, and actually we could meet each other's needs. And so there's space here, like we're such an individualistic society, but actually so many of us are craving more community. And so it really felt like that was a possibility, but it wasn't until kind of a moment in our business community that I had this I think this is how it can look. So that's what led to the several years later, this conversation with Sol. And to jump forward a little bit further, the whole process has been, really reflecting on it now, one of just incredible creativity. And for me, that reaching out, that calling you, Sol, was one of my ways that I grow creativity. I know that when it's at its real infancy, when it's in its tender, I think of it like a seedling that I've just planted and it's just got its little shoots, and I know what it needs, and it needs nurturing, and it needs love, and it needs more than just what I can give it, because I might also stamp on it inadvertently. So that's the point at which I called you up and I was like, this needs more than one person, this idea, seed that's come to me. I'm going to pause and let you guys intercept.
Oh,
No,
I love
great.
that. I love that. You know what I hear in that is, well, first of all, great excitement. There's a lot of joy in the way that you talk about it, coming together. And I know that you go back a long way, you two, that you've known each other for many years, but there's such excitement and positivity and possibility in the way that you both spoke about how this came to be. But also, what I hear is a really deep listening. So, Joey, you're talking about listening to your clients, listening to what they need and what can serve them, and then listening to what is growing in you that you can build or express, and then reaching out to Sol, and then Sol listens to his response, and it's a big yes, So there's a beautiful sense of, that kind of inner listening, or just cultivating or nourishing, or, planting that seed and kind of, it takes listening, I think, deep listening to do that. So that's just what I noticed in terms of, what you've both said there. Does that land?
Totally. The other thing that I'm really paying attention to as we're talking about it is, I didn't go to just anyone. So there's something about courage and creativity, and like choosing your person, choosing your people to nurture the idea, nurture the creativity. Like you say, Sol and I go back a long way, and he's a place of trust for me. So there's something about that with ideas of creativity. So
I'm glad you mentioned courage, because that's that's where I want to go next.
So
yeah. So I'm going to come to Sol again, and again I'll kind of talk to you each in turn, and then maybe we can do a kind of how it shows up collectively. So courage, creative courage, and this whole thing of stepping up and perhaps being more visible or expressing more authentically. Like, could you share with us, and for the people here, and hello to Josh and to Courtney who are here listening, could you share with us an example? I mean, it may be this initiative, it may be something else, but I'd love to know from each of you how and where and why you've stepped up with your courage. Yeah.
Yeah, really nice. Happy to share some examples. And also just to say, I guess within that, for me, the courage often comes not in the saying yes or the committing to something. It's then the next day or the next week and like doing the work and kind of like showing up, right? So that like Joey said, like she'd had this idea and been noticing these trends and listening deeply for quite a while. And then there's this like the creativity to hold that that emerges from holding the space, and then that kind of spark where you share that with someone, you put it out there. But then it's also Joe and I having those subsequent conversations of being like, okay, like what does this look like? And us now being a few weeks in and continuing to have those conversations and saying, so what's working and what's kind of not? And being willing to listen to the needs of our communities, being willing to listen to our own needs, what would feel just truly, joyous to show up on screen and in our community, and be willing to say, this is what we're going to prioritize, and this is going to how we're going to change how we communicate things. So I think the interaction between like creativity and courage, it's the moment, it's the launch, and then it's continuing to show up and iterate along the way, which is, I think, something we're doing like really, really nicely together.
Wonderful. I love that. Yeah, that kind of the persistence, the consistency, the kind of showing up, whatever happens. Yeah, I love that. Thank you, Sol. Zoe, how about you? Have you got a perspective on that in any way in your life that you've been creative and had to step up?
Yeah. I think it is. I think it is the willingness to listen to an idea, and then, there's so many reasons not to do this stuff. Like, all of the human stuff, all the like, oh, it's hard, or oh, am I the right person, or all the stuff that we see in each other as coaches and in our clients, and it's just human stuff, isn't it? But actually, the courage is the scaffolding, is how I see it, of like, what do I know that I need in order to at least give this a chance? I'm a gardener, so gardening metaphors are going to come out of me today because it's summer. But not all plants survive, right? So you have to give them the best conditions they can to thrive. And so for me, some of those conditions are about finding a trusted source, whether that's a co-collaborator or someone to share with. And that's a real act of courage in the first place. But also being prepared to back yourself. That's something that I've really taken from this journey of like, the results aren't in. There is no destination. They will never be in. You have to just back yourself. And there are totally moments where I'm like, oh, this so would be easier not to do. But that's a small life, not fulfilling life, right? That's the difference. So for me, the creativity and the courage really sit hand in hand, and knowing what it takes to keep moving forward, and taking action and trusting that the path will evolve, I think is really powerful.
Yeah, I love that too. And Josh is saying courage to ask for help as well, which can be tough, in this individualistic society where we're supposed to tough it out and have all the answers ourselves, and you to open to risk, as you said, and to being wrong, and to kind of correcting the path, and sort of, oh, that's not quite working, let's try this. And I think, back to kind of the creativity at school or in our educational establishments, like it was so about getting it right. Especially with writing, I find, people kind of come and they say, well, I don't know how to write because, I got it wrong at school. And it's like, what if we can just reframe that and ask for help and ask for support and take risks and be open? Yeah, I think that's a really key piece about courage. So yeah, the courage to kind of to create with others as well, I think is a really key piece, which obviously you're doing together as as co-founders, and you're opening that to the group, to the community that you're building as well. So you're modeling all the good stuff. You're actually modeling how to do that co-created, collective, inspiring work together, which is just wonderful, I think.
Thank you.
Yeah. So in a moment, I'd like to talk about kind of what gets in the way of creativity, because for me, this is a really important topic. But briefly, I'd love to know more about, your community and how it works, and just a very sort of brief synopsis, really, or précis about what it is, who it's for. So that we can give it a bit of a plug.
Thank you.
Thank you. Go on, go for it, Joey.
I'll do the overview and you can fill in the holes. But thanks for the opportunity. So we have created a virtual community for people who identify as purpose-led leaders and change makers, which is really broad, but people working in social justice or climate or anything towards a fairer, greener, kinder world. And what that looks like is essentially a mix of space to do the inner work. We really recognize that as humans, we need space to think and to reflect and to assimilate information, and to connect with other parts of ourselves, our bodies and our hearts and our guts and our wisdom. And it's also a space to be challenged and move forward in a kind of coaching context, but very much about thinking. And then like the overarching or the container is one where we are better together. Like genuinely, we can share resources, we can cross-pollinate ideas, we can collaborate, we can just bolster each other. That's something that's been coming up so much for us, is just like believing in each other is so powerful, and seeing each other's brilliance. So let me pause. Sol, what else do you want to say about it?
Wow. God, I don't know if I've got anything to add. That was such a lovely synopsis of what we're here to do. I mean, it's evolving, as we talked about, but fundamentally, like that is the space. It's spaces to pause, to think, to feel, to connect. I think Joey and I talk about joy, I think, quite a lot. Joey's really good at bringing us back to joy, like what feels good. And I'm a really big, and I have for a while, big believer in to sustain the work that we do, to sustain ourselves. I think we need to enjoy it as well. And so I think that's from just like the energy that we bring to our conversations and our sessions, through to like actively thinking about it. Like, let's make this feel good. Because I think just like natural human behavior and psychology kind of just like inclines us to do things that we enjoy doing. So maybe I'll just throw in just like joy as like a central organizing principle there as well.
Yeah, I love that. And there is a lot of joy. There's a lot of joy in the way that you interact with each other, which it's beautiful to see and be in and be present with. So what was I going to say? Oh, I know. You were talking about entrepreneurship earlier, being creative, and the word joy kind of sparked that for me. So my like limiting belief was like, entrepreneurship's got to be hard. Running a business has to be hard. It's work. And actually, the more I kind of do this stuff, and I can see it's very present in the way that you two talk about your business and the space that you're creating. It's like, it can be easeful. It can be joyful. In fact, it's better if it's coming from that place. It's a better place to be in. It's more sustaining for your own well-being, and it's also good for the people that you're serving, right? So just that little share. I briefly would love to know what you think about creativity and entrepreneurship, because it's something that for me is yeah, something I'm still learning, I think. So yeah,
Mm.
Joey, how about you? You go
Mm.
first.
Oh, well, I mean, my immediate response is that they go hand in hand. Like one of my absolute favorite books on creativity is Big Magic, by Elizabeth Gilbert. And just this
Mhm.
idea that, that like the ideas find you, which I'm absolutely into. And, and like, it feels like they rise up. And I feel like that's my experience of entrepreneurship or small business ownership or however you identify. Um, and so, yeah, I feel like they're like two peas in a pod, those two
Mm.
things. And yeah, that's what I got. What
Love
about you,
it. Love
Sol?
it.
Yeah, yeah, just to echo that. I think I don't want to anticipate the next question too much because I think so. Something you spoke to actually, I'll mention that maybe Rachel around like it can be easeful, it can be enjoyable.
Hmm.
I think that's true, but there are different ways maybe to frame that or to think about that. So there are ways in which we can kind of set up systems, and there are ways in which we can take certain actions that make our lives like actually on some level easier. There's less challenge,
Mm.
there's less resistance, there's less friction. And and then there's the kind of inner work, the inner before the outward, before the action, that's about like, well, however hard we try to optimize the role of being an entrepreneur, of running this community, there are always going to be challenges. There's always going to be friction. There's always going to be difficulty. And so I guess when I think about how we can make entrepreneurship like easier, it's like the inner work to be able to. And I don't want to anticipate the next question too much, but it's for me around. We've already mentioned like creating space, and so for me, a lot of it is about pausing
Mm.
and it's about noticing what's happening within us and where that resistance is internally, because there's resistance out there in the world and there's resistance within us. So when I think about creativity and entrepreneurship, I'm thinking about space and I'm thinking about letting emotions and sensations kind of flow through me to allow, like kind of Joey said, like big magic, we have to create the space to let the ideas find us. Because if we're, in my experience, when I'm just rushing around, busy, 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 the ideas never come. They never find me because I'm too head down. So I'll just stick
Yeah,
to that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And then we don't have time to listen, right? Back to that listening piece. We're not tuning in because our focus and our attention is somewhere else. Yeah, amazing. Yeah, I mean, it's very much the kind of realm of being that you're talking about, actually. Joy exists in that space, easefulness exists in that space. So, yes, there are some structural pieces, the resources, the systems that we can set up that can ease the way. And actually, if we show up as we are and who we are, and we express, ourselves in our uniqueness, in our, our own kind of insight, our own experience, if we bring that to the fore, then we're just being who we are. I mean, work is involved as well, but there's less friction in it because we're not trying to compare ourselves to other people. We're not trying to do what other people are doing. We're doing us. We're being who we are in our kind of, I guess the phrase that I'm thinking of is essential self, that we are in our essence. Which for me, that concept is huge. The work that I do, and I suspect the work that you two do as well, is to help people kind of get out of their own way so that their essential selves can come more to the fore.
Mm,
Yeah, totally.
yeah.
On on the idea of space, before we maybe go down that track, is I was just thinking, you make space for other creative pursuits. You have to make space to cook. You have to make space to make art. Like, why would you not make space for ideas to come to you in other formats, like whether that's writing or business ownership, or like it's the same thing. It isn't such a given. You have to like maybe think about it slightly differently. So yeah, throw that
Mm.
in.
Yeah, thank you. Love that. Yeah. So, any thoughts on essence, essential self, and where that figures in creativity? Maybe I'll come back to soul this time.
Yeah. Um, essence. So I suppose, I mean, you spoke about the essential self, right? Like there's something that feels very connecting and freeing and open when, for me, the busyness of all the other little subparts within me who are fighting for attention, when I managed to see beyond that or to quieten down some of that noise. And I managed to somehow let that slip away and come back in. So for me, a big essential part of the work of creativity, of accessing the essential self, but the word acceptance always comes up for me, right? It's for me, I'm trying to ease up around the struggle or around the pushing through. I guess there's a time sometimes to push. And maybe that speaks to the moment when Joey had that moment of inspiration and it came and it's like, this is the moment to kind of launch. Okay, like that's an action there. And I feel like that's an external action in the world to bring into fruition. There's a thing that needs to be done. And a lot of the time, I find that it's very easy for me to apply that same methodology and logic to like what's going on inside me. And actually, the thing that I most need to do most of the time to allow those big ideas to come through and to connect to that part of me that feels most expressive and joyous is just tune into it all, make space, listen, everything we've been saying, and then just like accept that it's there. And the more I try to ignore it, the more I try to suppress it, the louder it kind of speaks, and then the harder it is to see through the noise. So I think, yeah, I'll throw the word acceptance into the mix as we hear those different voices competing that can make the clarity difficult to access.
Mm. I'll come back to acceptance. I think that's really important here. But I'd love to hear from you, Joey, what you feel about essence and what role that has to play in creative expression, creativity.
Oh, this is such a nice question. I feel for me, when I think of essence, I think of like the innate human form, like in its very like simplest, like without all of the layers of beliefs that we're not good enough and we can't do it, and our smallness and our fears. And um actually this was a bit of a milestone moment for me, because I did some training several years ago where the trainer was like, every single human being is innately creative. Like, it's not a question. This is not something to be debated. It is who we are in our very, very most, essential form. And I think that just really resonates with me. And I think when I connect with clients, when I connect with people I know well, like that's what I see. I see their potential, that's essence. Like I see their innate brilliance, that's part of their essence. I see like what is what is possible when we're not like in our heads about all the reasons why we shouldn't do something. That's when we're in our essence. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, me too. I mean, that's very much how I feel about it. The kind of the stories that get in the way, the limiting beliefs, the all those layers, as you put it, of a kind of the stuff that is the filter for us being the kind of luminous self that we are at heart. And I think it really links back to this notion of acceptance, actually, because the more I sort of work with this stuff and on myself and also with other people, it's like we can't just like cram all that stuff out of the way and then go straight to the essence. I think there's a huge piece here of acceptance. We have to kind of befriend and make friends with and accept that we have these fears, that we have these voices. And again, it's back to the courage piece, right? That we show up anyway, despite those fears, despite those voices. The more we can accept them and recognize them as part of our whole self, there's a holistic piece here, then the more we can express the vulnerability. There's less fear. There's always some fear. I think we're always on the kind of emergent edge of fear, and I think that's where we should be, because I think that's where creativity is. It's that edge of evolution always, right? But accepting that there will always be things in the way and there'll always be the stories and there'll always be the limitations, but being okay and resolved with that, and then taking the action anyway, doing the thing anyway. Yeah, I'll pause there and see how that lands for either of you.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe I'll just add just what you brought up there in me, Rachel, was around expectation as well. For me, a really helpful practice around that acceptance and befriending has been expecting, or at least not expecting those barriers to just never be there. So that when I go to try and be creative or be courageous and do something, and that voice arises again and says, "Oh, I'm not sure you're up to this, or have you thought about how people are going to receive this?" And I do my acceptance and I do my befriends, and I'm like, "Hey, buddy, what's going on? What are you afraid of here? What are you worried about?" And we have that conversation. There's also something about just anticipating, maybe not expectation, but anticipating that while I try to, over time, turn down the volume on some of those voices, my expectation isn't that they'll disappear. And so when they come back, it's just like, hey guys, I knew you would show up. And that's cool. Let's make some space for you. And then I'm just going to do this thing anyway. Because if I don't anticipate it and they show up and I'm like, whoa, I'm trying to do this thing. Like, no, I can't believe you're still here. I thought I dealt with you. Then I'm in for a rough ride. So, so yeah, alongside the befriending, it's just like anticipation, just like, yeah, it'll probably always be there to some extent. And it's just ongoing work. And that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I couldn't agree more. It is ongoing work. And, the more we can anticipate, the more we can kind of create space for them. And they're not going to run the show, but actually they're welcome.
Yeah.
Those parts of ourselves that kind of say, oh, I can't do it, or, I'm not feeling it, or it won't be good enough. And all of those many, many voices that we hear, that actually to accept and also to kind of, yeah, to make space and befriend.
Mm.
I don't know if do you have like names or personas, or do you have like little characters or caricatures
Mm.
for those parts, Sol, at all?
Yeah, I do. I do. I do. I haven't been very. It's interesting. This is okay. This is maybe a little invitation for me to be more creative with my names because I just call them like really basic, obvious things. I think it would make it more fun to jazz up their names a bit. But I'll just be like, yeah, that's like my avoider. That's my procrastinator. There's my
Yeah.
critic, and I'll give it a little label, and that's quite nice. It kind of creates a little bit more separation between what we've talked about here, like the essential self and like
Mm.
these other parts of me who deserve like respect and attention. Um, but just creating that distinction from like who my like natural, innate, creative, flowing self is. Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
good
I
question.
love
Thank
that.
you.
I love
Yeah.
that. It's great. I mean, I think humor can be so important when we're working with these sort of, I guess you can call them shadow parts, or parts that we'd rather not be there, or that get in the way. I think humor can be a wonderful way to like release them and to kind of give the perspective that you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
How about you, Joey?
Yeah, I mean, just to add, I really love this. I don't think I've heard you talk about this recently, Sol, but it just I've heard of people, yeah, basically assuming they're your clan. They're like they're there, they're part of your tribe. Like they've all got roles, they've all got things they're probably quite likely to say. Like you say, they could have names, and yeah, it's a really peaceful way to approach something where there could be a lot of resistance or force if you weren't to just like, this is just, yeah, it's how it is. Like there's no point in pretending it's not going to be. So yeah, just to say
Mm.
it's a really lovely practice.
Can I just
Agree.
tag something onto that with the names there of them?
Yeah.
So I used to have like a negative term for them because I used to think of them as something that really held me back. So yeah, like the how did I call it? Just like the critics or something like that, maybe. And then I just relabeled them recently, and I've started to call them my protectors
Yeah.
because I feel like ultimately that's what they're trying to do. They're just trying to help me survive and be accepted and be loved and thought of as successful or whatever it might be. And so when I give it like a positive name, it helps me to come at them and those conversations with them with that approach that I spoke to earlier, which was like, "Hey, buddy, how you doing? What's up?" Arm around the shoulder kind of vibe, because they're my protectors rather than sure that they're saying not very nice things sometimes, but they're there to do a job that they think is helping.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, that term comes from, it's borrowed, isn't it, from internal family systems, that kind of system that people who are watching may have heard of this as well, this idea that we have all these parts, and the
Right.
protectors are the ones that have
Oh.
kept us safe, precisely. That's exactly their role, has been to kind of allow us to survive. So they're kind of like the survival friends, that have allowed us in many ways to be incredibly successful in some ways, or to kind of navigate our way through difficulties. So that, I think it's really important to honor the role that they've played in us getting to where we are in our lives, wherever that is, and to kind of recognize that they're there to be, not to be kind of to be fought off or to be repressed or suppressed, but actually to be
Mm.
honored and respected because they've kept us safe and often kept us, sometimes alive, but often we've thrived maybe in a certain way. It's just that then they take over. And I think it's that recognizing when do they take over that's the key. At least it is for me as I see it. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, a nice kind of build on that. That is just, are they in the driving seat or are they in the back seat?
Oh, that's
Yeah.
such a great framing. Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't want them to be in the driver's seat, but
Never.
but sometimes they might step forward and just grab the wheel, for a while, and then
Yeah.
but so that when we notice it, and then we can kind of gently invite them back into the back seat. I love that. That's such a great way to put it. Wonderful. Well, we're nearly at time. I don't know if anyone who's watching, you're very welcome to like type in questions or observations or reflections. But I'd love to know from both of you, like where we can find out more about you, and certainly the community that you've been building, and tell us a little bit more about that. And also, where are you in your online presences so that we can kind of seek you out?
That's a good question. We were talking about like the online present thing recently. So online as a website at the moment, we have a space on each of our websites where you can go to find out more information about the community. So yeah, the plug for my website is just the altacademy.com/community, and for Joey's sustainableyou.com/
.co.uk/community. Yeah.
There it is. Oh, mine's .co.uk as well. Yeah, thanks. Great.
I'll put
But we
I'll
are
put the links. I'll put the links in the show notes, as they say.
I
So
don't
don't
even
worry
know my
too much
website.
about. Yeah, it'll be there. So
Yeah.
I'll put the links to where people can
That's
find
cool.
you. So yeah.
And we're both on LinkedIn, right? As well. Where are good spaces for people to find us, Joey? LinkedIn, website.
Yeah.
I was about to say you're building a presence now. You're committed to. Do you want to talk about your writing and how people can find you here?
Yeah, well, it's an early part of my creative writing journey. Well, it's not, is it, Rachel? Because I've been on a journey with you for a long time. But the next iteration, the next stage, the next chapter is to be here on Substack. So yeah, come find me here, and it's happening.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
There's a whole Substack tribe, and it's a very supportive and welcoming place to be in my experience. Anyway, I've been here for a few years, I think, and I just and I'm slowly like evolving. But it's such a great place to experiment. We were talking about experimentation at the beginning. It's such a great place to experiment and say, well, what if and that doesn't work, so I'll try this instead. And it feels to me a very forgiving space, a very accepting space to kind of bring that word back in. So so I will watch your evolution, Joey, with great interest, and supporting you from the sidelines as well, of course. Well, both of you. And so Changemakers Collective, are you open to members? Like, where are you at with, so people go to the website, have a look, check you out. Can they link up with you to have a conversation about it? How does that all work?
Yeah, lovely. Yes. Basically, the answer is yes. We're about 5 weeks in, so it's really early days, but we've got a really lovely core membership, and we are looking to grow. So, basically, have a look at one of our websites. If it resonates with you and you want to connect, we'd love to, and that's where we'll take it from there. And then, that's it. That's the end.
Yeah.
It feels like a good fit. Then it feels like a really open space.
And it sounds like it's evolving as well. So I imagine that the people who join will be part of that early journey as well, of like evolving. Back to that theme of listening. It seems to me that you're listening to the people who you work with and who come to you, and co-create. So it sounds like a very exciting space in which it could be evolve in that way. So
100%. Yeah, we've got tons of ideas, and only 24 hours in the day. So it's very much in evolution phase, and loads of really great ideas on the table, not just from us, from the community already. So we're excited to see where it goes, and to build a really beautiful, mutually supportive community of people doing great stuff in this world. So
And just to shout out our community members, Joey and I, the last week or so, we've been having checking conversations with everyone. After a few weeks, have been part of the community. It's kind of like, how are you doing? Are we meeting your needs? What you brought to get from here, are you getting that? And then also asking for some feedback, and just a big thank you to our like founding community members, because they really are, like you said, they really are shaping the development of the community, and they have wonderful creative ideas that are supporting the evolution. So like a really big shout out. And yes, our intention is we are at this stage still able to listen and incorporate people's ideas. So yeah, that's a really lovely thing about the early launch of this at the moment. Yeah, get to
Wonderful.
shape it.
Yeah, definitely. Co-creation all the way.
Yeah, yeah,
It's been an absolute joy and delight to speak to you both. Thank you so much for
Thank you
coming
for
on and
having
having this
us.
conversation.
thank
I've
you.
really, really enjoyed it. Yeah, and so thank you for being my well, experimenting with me in this three-way format
Yeah,
because I love it. I think it's great, kind of bringing more people into the conversation. So thanks for that as well. And we wish you all the very best of luck with
Oh,
the
thank you,
Changemaker
Rachel.
Collective, and
thank
yeah,
you.
just really good luck, and it will go from strength to strength, I have no doubt. So
Thank you
Mm,
thank
so
you both. Thank you
much.
to everyone who's like showed up and commented and been here with us this afternoon in the UK. It's the afternoon anyway. It's just been a joy and delight. So yeah, go well,
Thank you,
everybody, and
Rachel.
yeah,
Thank you
bye
all.
thank you
bye.
so much, Rachel. Thank you
Okay,
for the invitation.
you're
Bye bye.
welcome. Yeah, see you
Bye.
Cheers.
later. Bye bye.
Bye.